which is about writing the book inside you. And today it's the power of storytelling. So I'm Carol Westmore. I've written about 5 or 6 different books myself, and I'm an EFT tapping, the world's first tapping book coach. And with me is Mary Ann Sharrett.
Mary Jane.
Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, tell us about yourself, Mary Jane, and how you come to be with me on this journey of writing a book.
Okay, so my name's Mary Jane. I'm an EFT practitioner and trainer as well. And my superpower, we talk quite a bit, don't we, Carol, about our superpowers. So before I became a therapist, which was 2006, I actually spent 15 years in commercial banking. And so I've got a kind of business background. And when I set up my therapy business, it was very different, obviously, from being employed. But I realized a lot of the hurdles that people go through to become therapists, to set up a therapy business. And a lot of my focus, especially now, because EFT is such a brilliant tool to help people, is a lot of my focus is on coaching people who have done their training in whatever therapy, not just EFT, but to help them actually become business owners and to attract clients. Because I have come across so many people who are brilliant therapists, but are not brilliant business people and really struggle to put the two sides of that together. So sometimes that's charging money. Yeah,
so Mary Jane, knowing that was your backstory and being interested in writing a book, was that, and I think in the course where you've been working with the other aspiring writers, quite a few times I encouraged you that could be the book inside you, and you agreed. And I think it's still percolating, although our course in our 6 weeks, we usually go from vague idea to an outline and the first draft if possible. Have you changed your concept of the book you want to write? Tell me where you are on your book writing journey.
Okay, so when I first met you, when we first came across each other, I have tried to write a book. Probably I found at least 5 drafts on my laptop in various forms that I've written in the last 10 years. So at least 5 goes, maybe a chapter or a sort of outline. I've done online courses, I've done in-person courses, all on this theme of helping people get from becoming a trained therapist to actually becoming a therapist with a business.
Much needed topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had no idea how to write a book. Not a clue. No idea how to structure it, how many chapters, how many words. I really just thought, you sit down and you just write some stuff and send it to a few publishers and magic happens. But it seems that's not true, Carol.
What did you find out? What did you find as yourself, an organized person? Did you find that the course helped you clarify, get structure, find your hooks, and start to, in a short period of time, realize, okay, it made it manageable and doable?
Absolutely. So 3 things, the 3 biggest things that I learned from you. First was I started going on a bit of a detour, and I was almost writing my second book. And you encouraged me in quite strong language to come back to my real superpower, which is getting people who've done their training into becoming therapists. And then I can write book 2 later, that's fine. So I was I had a bit of resistance, had a bit of a, inner battle around that. But then when I sat with it, I realized you were right. So thank you. So that was the first biggie for me.
Okay, that was one. What was the other 2? Tell us.
Second was you gave us very clear direction about kind of how many words, how many chapters, how many sections, how to structure a book. I had no idea about that. So that was really helpful. So I have a book outline written. I don't have the chapters all written, but I know that, you know, I'm doing a chapter about charging money. I'm doing a chapter about, you know, working on yourself. So many things. A chapter around what will my family say, all of those things that pull us back and stop.
And I think, Mary Jane, you also said that as you coming back to your teaching, and I found that with some of the others in the group, the more and more of the book outline and stories crystallize, which is what we're going to talk about today. Your client case studies and their concerns.
Yeah.
And I think one of the important things we need to know as soulpreneurs, because we're talking about the business of being a healer, the business of being a coach or a therapist, is that it's not, and I am in some ways guilty of this. It's not about sitting in your ivory tower and thinking, oh, I'm going to write a book today. You need to know your audience. Who are you writing for? And that's one of, you know, I've got the freebie, the 5 proven book hook tips. And one of the first things, who am I writing for? Now, there are different types of books, and I'm teaching what I call a transformational, independently published, or there are a few people that I'm helping approach a publisher, like say, hey, house with your book. But even there are different methods of writing that book. And what I want to talk about today is the importance of your own story, because that has been how my books were written. For instance, let me give you an example. My first book ever, really, before the days of Amazon, was a journey of being in midlife online dating, and some of the pain and not so much of the pleasures in those early years, and my own shame and, you know, my own feeling I had to pay to date. I mean, people laugh at that today, but, you know, let's go back 15, 20 years ago. It was like, no, not many people were doing online dating. Anyway, the point was, I then wrote a little book on using the power of clearing, using the inner clearing techniques like EFT or the journey, when life presented me with a date which hurt me or whatever. I would say, well, where am I doing that to myself? And this became like a little game to help me in this whole journey of online dating. And then, of course, the law of attraction, which I was using, you know, my ideal person. So in the end, and the book that I eventually published was about my adventures in online dating, but it's called How to Dump the Love Villains and Attract Your Love Hero. So immediately I brought in the kind of a story aspect to it, you know, online dating success secrets. And it's how to dump love duds, actually, dump the love duds and attract the love heroes. So which is clear and attract, you know, use your clearing. So, and the interesting thing with that is that, why is a story? So without being too open to all the wounding you had, you can show people who want to do online dating that you as your author understand, and maybe as a therapist, because we're talking about therapists who want to write their books, you understand their pain. That's the first thing. Just, oh, this happened and then that happened. And there are some books on dating, 20 dates or 200 dates in 2 years, and what you know, sort of what happened to me. But if you're writing a transformational book, you need to have some wisdom that you gleaned from your story that you want to share with the reader, and possibly, which I like to advise my aspiring authors, is to have your own signature system. How is your system, your book, Mary Jane, going to be different from the other books on how to run a business? And within that is your story and banking. Although I brought it up a few times in the course, you didn't really leap up and say, yes, my banking has helped me. But I would say as a coach that somewhere in there, you let people know that you have that logical mind, and you understand the emotion of what comes up when you training people in tapping.
And I think
anything.
And I think my superpower, as we're talking about superpowers, is I'm very good at seeing other people's blocks that they can't necessarily see themselves. So when I coach people and they're telling me what's going on, I can see, you know, it's like I can just see what people's blocks are. And there, you know, there are probably half a dozen common blocks that stop people becoming therapists. There are, of course, other people.
And of course, those same blocks, which can be fear or fear of rejection or whatever, are part of the book, the author's writing journey as well, which we discuss, because so many people will say, well, you know, why has there been resistance to finishing your book? Maybe you just didn't have the know-how, so you must, it's good to find someone who can say, okay, I've done it. In fact, as you know, my superpower was as a trained journalist, which is why I look for the story. I began my life as a journalist being thrown into the newsroom, but I was also interested in healing, and I was a transcendental meditation practitioner, not teacher, but I was doing that, and I realized that I was giving in the newspaper the negative side of life, and I wasn't actually enhancing the world by writing about murders and rapes and, you know, in the newsroom. So I set out the intention and was soon moved to the women's section. And then I thought, okay, I'm a bit of a women's libber in those days. We're talking the 70s. But I will be interviewing women who have a good story to tell. Otherwise, the newspaper wouldn't be interested in them. So they were top women in South Africa. Some of them were doing pioneering work with workers in the workforce, you know, the New South Africa. And that is where I learned, you know, to look for the hook, the story that I talk about in your book and in other people's books. There's also what I found when I came to write my books. And so it's important not to just say, I grew up here, not that kind of way of telling a story. I just say, like in a novel, a good novel writing, you come in with a bang if you can. Like my book, You Can Break Free Fast, starts, help me, my house is on fire. As I ran down the street in my red dressing gown, you know, banging on doors, I needed help. And when I ran back into the house and saw the sheet of flames, I knew that my dog was behind those flames and there was nothing I could do about it. So immediately, you know, that was the beginning of what catapulted me on my healing journey. But it opens, you know, with that story. So not everyone's got as dramatic a story, but it could be even a story that has touched you from one of your clients. You could start the book with, there's a chapter in that same book that says, you know, help me, I'm losing all my money. And I said, I don't know about you, but this was a man on the phone and he was crying, and I can't even bear to hear a child cry, much less a grown man. And then I tell his story because he was in trading. And of course, we don't divulge all our clients' personal details, but he had, and I've always found that interesting about our work with EFT matrix reimprinting or any of the therapies that do the energy work that we do, is that there's often a triggering moment or an archetypal story. In his case, which I won't go into now because we don't have time, but in the course or in any book you like. Now, do you have a book perhaps that's moved you, you know, in before, not our books, but that had a story in it that moved you to want to take action?
Well, I think one of the first healing, self-help, whatever you like to call it, modality books that I was, if someone recommended, was actually Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. It's a classic. And I have recommended that book to dozens and dozens of people over the years. But what I always say to them, because it's not at the beginning, it's at the back, I say, read her story first. Because her story is really, really powerful about her cancer and her realization of why she had her cancer and how she overcame it. And I always recommend people to read her story before they actually start on the book, because I think it gives context. And it's interesting that now it's published, it's that her story is actually, I think it might even be an appendix, you know, but it's not that how the book opens.
No. So what we're doing is we're weaving, as you say. People like her did it automatically. They wanted to share this healing. I think like she and the artist Way, it started out as a little, like we'd call a PDF. And that's actually how my dating book started. There were people in my book club saying, oh, I'll never date again and da, 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 da. And I said, look, just read this little story I've written, and eventually it attracted my husband. It was on a travel site, and he said, could I see your article on online dating, because I want to try it. I've been widowed for 10 years. And in the end, that's how we met and married, through that little book. So when people say to me, does a book make you rich? The first thing I say, that's the wrong question. We should be asking, how will this book enrich me and enrich the reader? And then maybe money will come out of it. Because, Mary Jane, what I want to also emphasize in this power of story is that this story that you tell in your book is also the story you're going to tell on your podcast. You're going to practice this story until you're going to be called onto a stage, maybe. It's going to be your mechanism for getting the authority, the visibility, the credibility, and to attract, droves of clients who say, I want to work with you, which is another reason to be more specific. Don't have a general book for, like, and a good example is this program. I'm really speaking to healers, to soulpreneurs who have a mission to get a message to get out to the world, and even more specifically to EFT practitioners, because a lot of them specialize in different things, or they're told to. I don't know what you teach in your training.
I teach niching. I recommend niching. There's a lot of resistance to niching, but
I know, and I'm one of the biggest
clients.
You can look at me with niching. I said I will only deal with a woman of this age, and then a man will come to me from Argentina, and I'll work with him, and I'll think, okay, but you're not my, and I've also struggled with that. But anyway, the point is, if you're going to write a book, it's good. Like my online dating book was for midlife women, 40, 50, who want to get through the perils and pitfalls of online dating. And that's not my title, but who want to, it is one of the chapters actually. And and come out feeling confident, because when I wrote that book, I actually hadn't met anyone. So it was a bit of a risk, but I wanted to tell a story, and I wanted to help women not to curl up in a ball if they have a bad experience, but to move on through it. So what else should we say today? I think I've covered the idea of story.
I haven't told you my third big win from you yet.
Well, you see, this is how it works. You start, you open, then you close the loop. What's your third thing?
The third one was, so you asked us one week on the course to write our back cover, if you like, the back cover of the book. You call it the book hook. I think
the blurb. No, the blurb.
The blurb. I wrote what I thought was a brilliant back cover, and you rewrote it in a way that I thought, oh, that is just fantastic. And I don't think that's, I would never have thought to have worded it like you did. So, and you didn't really use anything new. You just jigged it around and just the way you rewrote it. So that's another of your superpowers, is writing very good blurb and good book hook.
Yeah,
so
and
the tagline, the thing that brings people.
Thank you for that, because there's one writer, I can't remember his name, but he's well known, and he specializes in writing, he calls it book descriptions, because he said most people write their book and they go through getting it self-published and they do everything, but then they've got to put a thing up on Amazon what their book is about, and that kind of tails off. And he said, no, that's key, and he offers to do it for people for a fee. And so yes, you can't always see the gold, and also you have to tease a bit. I think one of my book hooks is tease, not teach. Spark curiosity in your blurb, create an emotional desire to know more about the book. So that it has to be, this book is about, and the benefits. By the end of this book you'll get that, and just spark a bit of curiosity. I can't think of exactly how you're going to, each book is different. So thank you for reminding me of that superpower. So going forward, we have taken 6 people through I've taken 6 people through a recent book, Write the Book Inside You program, and I'm moving towards opening up. Now today is the full moon, the full harvest moon, so it's a time of harvesting the
full
joy
moon in
of
Aries as well. That's me. I'm Aries.
What?
The full moon is in Aries, and that's me.
So that's a good day to sort of announce, although it's still a wait list, that you're going to accompany me on the next teaching course, because I think your superpower of helping people clear their blocks will be available while I'm teaching the book know-how. And I will value that. And so we're looking for 6 weeks, starting October the 19th. And this isn't about selling the course, but I do think it'll be good if I can interview 5 or 6 people who are interested on the wait list to see if they're really ready to go this next commitment of 6 weeks, followed by some accountability. Why do you think that accountability weeks following the teaching is important, Mary Jane?
Well, for me, just having the 6-week structure was brilliant, because I'm quite driven by deadlines, otherwise I don't get stuff done. So the fact that we were meeting on a regular basis, and you'd asked us, by next time try and complete this, and so I did, because I'm a good girl and do as I'm told. But then I guess after the 6 weeks, it's easy then just to let it drift. So that follow up a little later is again a really good reminder, gives us our kind of springboard for the next, what we need to do next, gives us an idea of where we need to go. But the format was great. So there were a small group of us, and we each shared where we'd got to, what we'd done. And the whole group format, although you were leading it, the group format was really powerful, because everybody had ideas for everyone else. We're all writing on different themes and subjects, but everybody had input into everybody else's work. And that was really powerful.
Thank you, because I think actually one of the most, as I said, writing in isolation, not thinking about your audience, and just the accountability of saying, well, I could put it off this week, we've got a meeting next week and our homework is to write, 10 chapter headings. Just something small, but doable, or 3 chapter headings, but to have the accountability. And I'll be honest, I've learned as well that I need accountability. I don't think there's any writer who doesn't appreciate some kind of deadline. I think that's why people love having a publishing deal, because then they've got someone breathing down their neck. And, one of the things we'll go into the course is the pros and cons of handing your baby or your book over to a publisher. Like Hay House or whatever. And I don't want, it could be anyone other than Hay House. But, and doing it yourself and keeping the audio rights and, using it, maybe for some people, they call it a calling card. And very importantly, I like to recommend tiny books, rather a book series of 3 books, perhaps, which I don't know if publishers are allowing that, but it's definitely, there's short reads on Amazon, and people will pay for a short read if they get the information. They don't necessarily want War and Peace to tell them how to, heal their grief over their pet, or I don't know, what are some of the topics that people could be, writing their book on? Could be something like that, or I think parenting in the pandemic. I think someone started a book on that, or things like that. So it's an exciting time. And I think in the end, I want to just end on my why, not so much the fact that I have the superpower of helping people, but that in these times, in the time I've had to reflect during lockdown, I've realized how grateful I am that I have written the books I've written. Because sometimes people say, my time, I think if I was told I had so long to live, I wouldn't have the energy to write a book. But, it's like what I call putting the toothpaste back into the tube. You've got a life story, you've got a book in you. Now it's time to say, well, this is my book. And sometimes you'll be reading your book in a year or 2 or 3, and you'll wonder, wow, thank goodness I've got this. I go back to my books. And in fact, the structure of the Book Inside You course is based on my goal success, my 5 steps to goal success, which is get inspired. What are my 5 steps? Get inspired, get clear. And that's your inner blocks, and are clear on what you want to write. Get focus, get going, and keep going. So I've applied it to the Book Inside You, and I thought, well, thank God, that structure works for people with any goal. And I can apply it to the Book Inside You. So that's how the backstory on that. I wrote a book, when I was still working with Carl Dawson, and we were doing some of the workshops in South Africa. And I went to him and I said, look, I'm a Capricorn. I love goals. Can I be the person who develops matrix goals re-imprinting? And he said, yes. And that became that book, you see. And now
okay.
I'm applying it to the book inside you. So, Mary Jane, I think we could end on that. And
Yes.
in the comments, anyone who really, you know, I mean, who's in this group already, but who
Yeah.
wants to share it with someone they think might be interested, it would be great to just share what.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in next week, if we meet, are we going to meet Wednesdays or Thursdays? We haven't quite decided.
We haven't yet decided, but we'll sort that out.
But we'll announce another Facebook Live. If I feel inspired, I'll jump on and do one. But
Yeah.
I think together, because we're going to walk this journey, we're going to walk the authors through the next
Yeah.
course. It would be good to talk about one aspect of the course. It could be a title and subtitle, or
Yeah.
something that is important. That
maybe I can do a little block clearing.
Yeah, we could do something like that. So
a mini block clearing. And I think what you just said reminded me of the quote by the late great Wayne Dyer about "Don't die with your music inside you."
Yeah,
you've got a book, get it out.
Exactly. And now's the best time. Every time's the best time to plant a tree is now, as it was 10 years ago. But just don't let, as you say, the music die. What's it? Unsung.
Don't die with the music inside you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Okay. Bye, everyone. I